na 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 na. Bam bam. Oh na 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 na. Bam bam. Oh na 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 na. Bam bam. Oh na 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 na. Big it up. Oh na 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 na. Big it up. Oh na 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 na. Bam bam. Ba 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 day. Ba ba ba. Ba ba day. Ba 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 day.
Welcome to Home and Away Jamaica. This program, as usual, is always hot. What we always advise people as well is to talk to the experts, the people who know what they're supposed to do. Today, you're with just me, Paulette Price. We normally have Robert. Robert's not with us today, but we're going to do a really great show. Today, I want to welcome two guests. I'll start with Jerome Jarrett, who is from JMB, and also to my colleague, Howard Johnson from Howard Johnson Realty. What we're going to talk about today is about really and truly not to be afraid of the real estate industry. This is not a time to be afraid. There are so many great opportunities. Every 10 years or so, there's a shift in the market. And it doesn't mean because something changes that there's a crisis. It just means there's another opportunity. So I'm going to start off with Jerome. Jerome, please introduce yourself and tell us what we should be doing. What should we be doing in this time, in this crazy, scary time?
All right. Morning, everyone. I'm Jerome Jarrett, Manager Client Partnerships at JMB Bank. I'm your financial partner. These are unprecedented times for everyone. I don't think anyone can say they have ever experienced anything even remotely close to the times that we're in. But as you know, when there are any crisis, there's always opportunities that exist in any crisis. And it's for us to identify those opportunities, exploit those opportunities so that we can come out of this crisis better than we went in. Including in those opportunities are opportunities in the real estate market. And if you are a Jamaican, living in the diaspora, there have never been a better time than now to purchase real estate. There is a glut on the market. There are a number of developments that are going up. There are a number of developments that are available on the market. And also, rates and terms have never been more favorable than they are today. We have banks clamoring over the few customers that are available and qualified to borrow. And these banks have lowered their rates, they have lowered their fees, they have lowered their terms. And not only that, but the government has shown a willingness to provide their residents with the most affordable and great terms to purchase. So we've seen where NHT has reduced their rates. In some cases, they have increased the allocation or the qualification for each individuals, and also their terms have also been relaxed somewhat. We've seen the government move to reduce transfer taxes, make stamp duty a flat fee regardless of the transaction amount, and we've seen a myriad about initiatives to stimulate the real estate market. So with that being said, there are opportunities abounding in Kingston, in St. Catherine, in Montego Bay, all over the island. We're seeing developments popping up. So the real estate industry is very, very, very buoyant in Jamaica at this point, and I would encourage everybody to look at ways to grab a piece of this island called Jamaica.
Okay, Howard?
Yes, well, just like what Jerome has said, it is a golden opportunity, especially sitting from where I sit. I do wear multiple hats, but as a director of the real estate board, we have not seen a reduction in the approvals given for new builds, and we're not talking just in Kingston and St. Andrew, we're talking island-wide. So the developments are still coming in, and you would note that during the COVID restrictions, the construction industry was one of those industries that was not necessarily penalized, and they allowed for persons to continue to carry out their developments And persons have completed developments in this time since March when we had our first case. Persons have moved in and are now occupying, people are now renting. So things have been very, very active in the industry, even during this period of time. And as Jerome rightly said, the incentives are there, the inventory is available, and it's just for persons, especially in the diaspora, to look and see what is happening. I know a couple of stories here where persons were, when things happened in their jurisdiction, they were looking to come back home, but maybe some persons were reluctant because all the years away, they were not sure if they should come back, and they didn't have anything to show for it. And now persons are doubling back and saying, let me try to see how best I can position myself so that if in the event there's another crisis or something else happens, I'm prepared to come back to my land of birth. So we are encouraging the diaspora to prepare themselves and consult with your financial institutions and consult with your realtor, just to ensure that those opportunities are there for you, so that when the time comes, and even if it's not right now, at least you have some sort of investment that could aid towards retirement. And again, we have a myriad of opportunities.
I have to say I agree with you in terms of the market not really falling asleep. I am still as busy as I was before COVID. I even had a client even 3 or 4 days ago said to me, Paulette, she's actually overseas. Can I go and take a video of a particular property? And by the time I call the agent to make the appointment, the property is already at contract stage, and that's just in 4 days. Can I ask you both, just give me your feeling on, we can't work in isolation and just say this is what's happening in Jamaica. Whatever is happening around the world affects all of us, not just Jamaica, everywhere. So I was watching the debate yesterday between the two candidates who are going to be wanting to be the president of America. So do you think that people now will be saying, I really want to invest somewhere else, i.e. Jamaica? What's your opinion on that?
Jerome, say this again.
Don't speak at once.
Okay, well,
if you watch that comedy act last night, it is a you definitely want to be able to have multiple options to where living arrangements are concerned, because not only is COVID a new phenomenon, but the presidency of the United States, that office. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yes,
so it's really an opportunity for you to look, especially for persons in the diaspora, to look on options outside of the US, and even prior to this, real estate is one true way of growing wealth. And if you're in wealth creation, real estate must be a part of your portfolio if you're looking to grow wealth. And diversity of real estate, owning real estate in other jurisdiction also creates that diversity in your portfolio. And Jamaica is poised for growth. Jamaica was on a growth path prior to COVID, and I do believe with proper and prudent management, we should be able to come out of the back of COVID looking better than we went in.
Well, in addition to that, and not to be political, I did mention earlier that whether it's COVID or something else, we don't know if something else will pop up even after November and have an adverse effect on immigrants, even in the United States, with what is happening. So as Jerome rightly said, your options should always be available. And from what I'm reading and hearing in the region, Jamaica is a golden place for that opportunity. Persons are looking for that second home or retirement home or just to come back home. Jamaica is an ideal spot, and because we have a lot of things happening, the government is really serious on relaxing the transactional costs or how the ease of doing business. We're hoping to take further steps in curbing the crime. We're moving towards proper identification of our citizens, protecting the borders, stimulating tourism. And you will recall, and I saw some previous programs on Home and Away Jamaica about the Airbnb market. If we get back to normalcy, we'll see some of those things coming back to fruition. You will see the entertainment space developing, and it's even more dynamic, because even though I think before COVID we were all we're probably sitting in a room. But after COVID, we'll be having a mixture of room and this sort of technology that will allow persons to communicate and to enjoy the pleasures of what we have to offer. It's just that you can't taste the mango or the pear when you're online. But certainly, if you want to come to Jamaica at some point in time, at least you can have your asset financed by a JMB, sold by a realtor on the seaside. St. Elizabeth is emerging, Portland is emerging, Trelawney is emerging. So we have areas outside of just the Kingston and St. Andrew or the commercial Montego Bay and Ocho areas that are now developing, and we're getting new builds in those areas. So the inventory is vast. It all comes down to your preference, and whatever your preference is, I think Jamaica has something to offer for each and every person.
Yeah. One of the things that I get feedback on from the diaspora, because as you can tell, I am from the diaspora.
Are you in it?
Whatever. So I get, especially with the older generation, I get them always talking about the crime. I go to London quite regularly, and I try to say to them that it's really, crime is everywhere. And it's perceived, the figure that is perceived is a lot higher than the reality. So how would you persuade them that this is really the place to come? Because they all say crime is the top of the list, but what I've actually found is that a lot of the time they don't trust. So they don't trust different people in the different areas of what they need to do. What else can we do? Although we're in finance and we're in real estate, but what else can we do to get them to say, I think this is a place where I should invest, get my second or my third investment property in Jamaica?
I think we could just look at the market and see how they are freezing. I mean, although they're owning for a few days, there is a notion. Yes, there's a notion that the industry here can accommodate persons that are coming from overseas and that they can be safe. I think it all boils down to your influences and your lifestyle, because that plays an important role as to how exposed you are to crime and violence. If you are if you explore a lot and you're not doing so in the safest where you're too adventurous without the proper guidelines, then you may find yourself in a little problem where you're not properly secured or in that environment that is safe. So for us as realtors, we tend to encourage persons to still consider Jamaica as a second home, but make sure that you're doing so in areas that is populated, not too remote, especially if you don't have a history or connection to Jamaica, and that makes a world of a difference. So some of the crime that we have are in areas that you may not want to call home. Some of the crime that we're hearing is involving activities that you may not want to be involved in. So if you stay away from some of those activities and some of those areas, I do believe that just like how the tourists are enjoying Jamaica, you as a second homeowner can enjoy your second home, especially for those cold months. You can be on the beach side in secure communities that we are enjoying even as residents here, because we're living here. Yes, we hear about it, but I have not heard of any adverse effects on us and our families so far. God bless us so far. But it comes down to your lifestyle and how you choose to live and where you choose to live.
For me, I think the media has a huge part to play in how Jamaica is marketing. We generally like splash headlines, and our media personnel, they sell based on sensational stories.
Yeah.
So when you have 10 people murdered on the front of the Gleaner, you're gonna have sales for that day. So we don't promote positive stories. We don't promote positivity. And even you look at the way how news is carried in other first world countries, the stories that lead the news are positive stories, even though they have crime even sometimes more than we have it in Jamaica. But it is not plastered across all media houses for panic. And I think the media and the government has a role to play where that is concerned, because when I look on some of the things that are happening in the US, there is no way I'm going to the US anytime soon. And when you see militia groups and clashes, You know,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
come on, there's no way I'm coming to the US
Yeah.
anytime soon. So it shows the role that the media plays, and even with the downgrade of Jamaica as a tourist destination because of how we manage COVID. Jamaica has managed COVID much better than how
Yeah.
a lot of other countries have managed it.
Yeah.
But because of how the media is portrayed, and every day on the front of the Gleaner, we put how much COVID, and the observer, how many, the tracker for COVID and stuff like that. So the media plays a greater role, and the media needs to improve their journalism in order for us to market our country great, because we're paradise. We have summer 12 months of the year. How many other countries can say that in December you're on the beach, in January the weather is the same as in June? I mean, not many countries in the world can say they have 12 months of summer, and there are persons living large in Jamaica. I can tell you that.
I believe it.
There are opportunities. There are opportunities here that exists nowhere else in the world. Jamaica is paradise, and persons need to appreciate it. Our media need to send that message and stop, the sensationalized stories that to try and sell people. It hurts more than it benefits. Our journalism need to improve in order for us to market our country better, rather than trying to sell newspapers. We need to, look at the long-term effects of the positive news that should be shared about some of the great things that are happening in Jamaica, some of the great destinations in Jamaica, some of the great things you can do while you're in Jamaica, as opposed to, splattering sensational stories all over the media just to make a headline.
Yeah. And that is a very key thing. Robert Taylor and I have been working in the UK, working with some of the diaspora, and our presentations consist of all the great things about Jamaica. And I can remember us doing one of our presentations where every point we made, there was a gasp in the audience. So we said, do you know that people go to Tivoli for Airbnb? Did you know we were #1 stock exchange back in 2000? And they just don't know. So we really do have a lot of work to do. We probably need to work with the media. We probably need to, because they don't know the damage that they're actually doing.
I think they do know, but it's just it's their self-preservation. You know what I mean? If you post on the front page, a company donates 100 computers to a school, you know what I mean, the papers won't sell. But if you put 3 people murdered at a dance in Tivoli Gardens, for certain your paper is gonna sell.
Jerome,
that's just the reality.
One of the things I wonder, and I agree with you, and I think as a country, and I'll ask Howard to opine on this, but I don't think we value ourselves enough as a people. I think our expectations of ourselves is at a very low ebb. And one of the examples I'll use is I'll say Howard post a property on, Treasure Beach for $1 million US. And I'll start reading the responses to the post, and I'll see $1 million for that. They're mad. That. And what we could have buy with that. And I say to myself, but if this was the Bahamas, if it was any other Caribbean island, anything on the waterfront would be $2, $3, $4 million. Why don't we believe that $1 million in Treasure Beach, a quarter acre in Treasure Beach on the waterfront could be worth $1 million US? In some respects, I still think our property values are still less than other comparable markets. I don't know if that's
and I agree with you, but it's in relation to standard of living and affordability in Jamaica. If it is that the average income earner is, the disparity in income in Jamaica is pretty wide, with the haves and the have-nots. And the average person in Jamaica cannot afford a property in that region. So what it does is that if you see the price at certain levels, it becomes unattainable to you. So you automatically assume it's unattainable for everybody. So that's when you start seeing the comments about, you know, who can afford these properties and stuff like that, because it's unattainable to me. So who else can buy it? You know, it's nobody else should be able to, because I can't.
It's a very valuable point that Robert made, and if I didn't think I have a follower, I know I have one follower, because that in fact happened on one of my pages. And when you in this business, and having done this for 23 years, $1 million US for a piece of paradise is really grossly understated. And some of the properties that I have seen and come across in my career, $1 million barely cutting it. And there are some properties that if you drive on the road, you can't even see where they're located, because persons are flying in the middle of the night and enjoying these hideaways or these getaways, and they're costing way more than $1 million. But we are not doing ourselves justice when we, well, and I say there are persons that may be in a lower category, as Jerome mentioned, trying to barely make it to get this $30 million property or this $10 million property, and compare that to $1 million US. It's different demographics. And for the persons in the diaspora, they have to understand what is their spending power when they're making the decision to invest back home or to come back home. You know, what's my spending power? What's my lifestyle? Where do I need to go and enjoy this? And can I afford where I want to be? So those are some of the decisions that I would encourage a lot of persons to consider. Do I come back and go on the North Coast? Do I come back and go back to where I grew up, especially in the corporate area where the demographics or things and times have changed? Do I still go back there just because of the sentiments? We have to make those informed decisions, and that's where the professionals come in. You need to talk to your financial institution, talk to your attorney, talk to your realtor to ensure that everyone is comfortable knowing that the investment that you're going to be making in Jamaica is in fact a valid one and something that you can maintain. And in some instances, it may be $1.5 million just to enjoy your retirement the way you deserve. And in other cases, it may be 250,000, 20 million Jamaican dollars that you are going to go and you're still going to enjoy your retirement as you deserve. So it's not to turn people off based on what they can afford. It's just to stay in your lane, as the saying says, and enjoy what you can afford.
What would you say are some of the very important takeaways for the real estate industry in Jamaica coming out of COVID, when you compare some of how our market has responded versus to what we see in the media in other far more developed markets?
The real estate market has room for improvement, I must say, in Jamaica. We have come a far way, but we still have a ways to go. And I think developers have to now be very creative as to how they approach the market to meet the demands. We have to think outside of the box. We have to adapt to the new happenings, the new norm, and not be in a mold. I know we have our plan sitting down, and we had a land sitting down from a long time ago, but we have to probably tweak it a bit just to meet the demands of making persons feel at home and not just provide them with a box. And I think that's where we have to encourage our developers to look and see about their deliverables, because it will encourage developers to continue to be in the development space for a long time. But if you just build a box and you don't leave a memorable impression, and somebody say, hey, I'm just in these four walls, and what really happened? And I think the developers have to think about what they're giving, the amenities that they're giving, and how they can fit that into the space, if I heard your question correctly.
No, absolutely. And what have some of the how has the market reacted? Now, I see many persons in the diaspora, you know, when our borders were closed, eagerly awaiting our borders to reopen so they could come back home. I got a sense that for the first time, people saw Jamaica as a safe haven, which was almost a contradiction, you know, in this, you know, very material-driven world. How did you see the real estate industry dealing with that dynamic?
I concur with that. A lot of persons, they couldn't wait to come back home, and they wanted to touch down in Jamaica. And if they were going to be quarantined or if they were laid off for a period of time, home is where they wanted to be. And they came back home and they saw what was here. They saw the development quite different from what they saw in the headlines, in the newspaper. They said, how didn't I didn't know about this. I didn't know that there was a reggae falls. I didn't know that this picture, this location existed. And therefore they were very interested in saying, can I get a piece of this complex? Is there any units available? I mean, are there any opportunities along this north coast? Are there any opportunities in Kingston? And while they were here, there are persons looking to actually engage in real estate acquisition. And we had to adjust to that. Luckily, well, unfortunately, they weren't here long enough to complete a transaction, but many of them are still in train because they see themselves coming back here maybe as early as November. It could be as late as next year, late after summer, and some of them are even looking for business opportunities here because you will attest to the fact that there are persons working from home in Jamaica. Right? Don't tell me that home was in New York. I'm back home and I'm working from home and they're getting the job done and they're enjoying it here. And while they're here, they're looking for business opportunities where they can either extend what they're doing away or they can now develop something lucrative here and remain in the island that they have come to appreciate. So the real estate market has adjusted, and that's why I'm going back to my earlier point that the developers have to understand that and see where the opportunities present themselves so that when I'm making that decision now, not to just get my commercial space, but to get my home of residence, that I can appreciate some of the same amenities that I'm giving up. Because in one hand, they're giving up something to come back to Jamaica, but if they can get the same thing, and I'm so proud of the soon-to-be parish, if I may say so, St. Catherine, Portmore, where you see some of these gated communities and you feel like you're driving in South Beach, right? Because of the vision that some of these developers had. And Jerome will tell you, you can get financing to move into a complex that is all-inclusive. We have the Richmond as another example on the North Coast. Those communities are mimicking what persons are accustomed to outside of Jamaica. And if we can bring more of that product here in Jamaica, we will see a lot more take-up of our diaspora persons coming home.
One of the...
I started, once again, Robert, I started my opening rant about the opportunities that exist in a crisis. And one such opportunity we saw was the fact that persons weren't able to travel during the summer. So what happened was that many persons had to staycation in Jamaica. And what that does is that when you staycay in Jamaica, you post these pictures and they're splattered all over social media. They're splattered all over the internet. Persons are like, wow, that's in Jamaica. Where's that? Let me get some of that. And usually you would have a mass migration of persons to the US, to Canada, to Europe during the summer. But because of the COVID restriction, persons had to stay home. So now when persons do these villas, and even the hotels were closed, so you had to go to these private villas, you had to go to these Airbnbs, you had to take the beaten path for want of a better word. So persons discovered a different side of Jamaica. So now persons are like, oh, this is here, that was there. Let me start taking greater note. And we saw where local industries benefited a little, and the advertising for some of these smaller type developments started to get more visibility. So again, through every crisis, there are opportunities that presented themselves. And I from a banking perspective, to answer Robert's initial question, we have not seen just yet a downturn in the appetite for borrowing for real estate. We have, and I preface that by saying just yet, because it is expected that the real hit from the pandemic won't hit until another 6 to 12 to 18 months, because as jobs, as persons get laid off, as company reduce staff, as companies' operations evolve, we will see some catastrophic impacts from the the pandemic. We saw yesterday where 28,000 persons were laid off from Disney. You know what I mean? A lot of those things are going to start spinning off on a lot of other companies. So for now, I can say from a banking standpoint that we have not seen any reduction in the appetite for persons interested in real estate. However, we have to assess risk, and we have to be careful, because a lot of these companies are not going to survive this pandemic. A lot of businesses are not going to survive. So we just have to, while we strive for growth, we just have to be mindful as well that we have a future to plan for.
Howard, when you raise the opportunity for developers to pivot, one of the things that come to mind in the US in particular, consumption habits have changed. So, you know, certain stock prices are being driven by this changing dynamic. So persons are staying home. So persons are buying more paint because they're repainting their homes. They're spending more time at home, buying TVs and so on. But also, persons no longer need to live where they work. People can work remotely. With about 60% of the workforce working remotely, people can choose to live wherever they choose to. So somebody could be working with a company in New York, Amazon in New York, but they can move to Florida because they want the benefit of the climate, or they can move to Jamaica. I know of one couple that lives in New York, but they've decided to spend a year in Jamaica, and they'll be working remotely. Now, what I've seen, I was on a conference call recently with a developer in South Florida. They are building condominiums with offices. So they're building home offices. So each condominium will have a fully fitted office that's, you know, separated. So, you know, that's, I guess, the kind of pivot you're making reference to that developers can do as we see the work habits change.
Absolutely, and it's not just, I mean, because the infrastructure is also needed. So that is a good move, and any home that has a study now is really prime property. But if you have the infrastructure to accompany it, such as cable, good internet, probably not as unstable as mine earlier, but if you have very good cable and internet and a good provider, it makes a world of a difference. So if these developers are outfitting their properties with things that you're going to be needing while working at home, if that becomes your new norm, or you have another business that complements it, or your kids have to be at home studying because we don't know when they can physically go back into the classroom. If your space is already equipped with that and it doesn't require a lot of reconfiguration, then your asset has gained in its equity because it's now in demand. And if you are one such person that is in a property and you have all that space, but you really don't need it because you're empty nester, maybe this is a good time to convert. Let someone else who needs that give you the equity, buy from you, and then you downsize into something a little bit more comfortable in another location where you can experience scenic atmosphere, as opposed to being in the corporate area where somebody really needs it. So this is an opportunity for re-evaluation, adjustments from the developer, and for us as professionals guiding the consumer into making the best possible decision for themselves during this period of time.
Well, one thing for sure, this pandemic has certainly taught us how to readjust, and it made us become a lot more creative. Because if I think about all those office blocks, we don't have so much of them here in Kingston, but I mean, think about London. A lot of those office blocks may have to be converted into apartments or office homes in the same kind of way, where we function, everything happens at home, and we probably just leave the apartment to go to the park to walk the dog or whatever. But this certainly has been a very interesting time, and things that we said we couldn't do or wouldn't do, we're definitely learning to live with that and even create new ideas. So we will just have to continue as real estate people and financial people to grow within the new spaces and create new ideas. So just want everybody in the UK to know, or the diaspora, we're ready. Jamaica's ready. We can do this. We know how to do this.
Just to add to what Robert and Howard was mentioning earlier, one of the most unique phenomenon is also homeschooling. So not only are you needing space for your office space, but your kids to homeschool has become uh it, I have 3 kids at home trying to homeschool, and it is a challenge. So it's the space is becoming critical. The space is becoming necessary, and the developers need to be flexible. They need to adjust, and they need to find more ways of providing solutions to the unique needs that COVID have been presenting. So
we're here to help you, Jerome. If you can finance your purchase, we can elevate it to a new space. Come on
just
now.
take 2 of them from me. Just take 2 of them. Take 2 of
You
them
want
from
me
me.
to take the kids and not you get to the house? Okay, I got you. Oh boy.
But guys, thank you very much. I think we've had a very spirited discussion and well informed. I think in this particular period and challenge, it's very good to get an opinion from all sides. So Jerome on the financial side, Howard on the real estate side.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And
Thank
You're
you.
more than welcome.
really good to have you
Man, I appreciate it.
join us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Don't
Thank you.
forget to
Our
share
pleasure.
and subscribe.
Oh la 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 la, bamba. Oh la 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 la.